Hi, this is the second video discussing the Heirloom Seed Conference here in Israel. And today I'm going to discuss two of the speakers. I'll start out with the first one. His name is Liron Israeli, and he discussed the biodynamic garden. Now, biodynamic means that it's not just a single item. It's a bunch of different things that work together to make a great garden and to make good, healthy plants. For example, the atmosphere. The atmospheric conditions surrounding a plant, the time that it is planted, the time the seed is planted, the time that the seeds are produced. It is the water conditions. It is the lighting. It's the animals that are surrounding the plant. There's so many different things that come together to produce a good, healthy plant. And a good, healthy plant produces good, healthy seeds. But there's so many factors even in that. So what he discussed more was that we need to not just focus on preserving seeds or preserving a plant the way it is. Plants grow, life grows, things advance, things progress, things change over time. So preservation equals stagnation. And he focused more on rejuvenation, getting the soil biology correct, getting the animal-plant ratio correct, getting the lighting correct, getting the atmospheric conditions correct. You know, nitrogen is in the air, and plants actually absorb more nitrogen from the air than they do from their roots. I mean, they do get nitrogen from their roots, but they can get it from the air just fine. So it's in the soil and in the air. It's just one example of an atmospheric condition. You have atmosphere above ground, and you have the atmosphere below ground as well. So he discussed, this rejuvenation. You need to invigorate the plants with new gene pool, with variety, and that's what gives you a very good plant. It gives you a very good nutrition. It gives you the right environment so that plants can grow, develop, and in turn it feeds us as well. One of the things that he also focused on was animals. A lot of people like to keep animals out of their garden, and especially chickens. The chickens are going to eat my garden. It's true, chickens will eat your garden. However, chickens help the plants. They help the plants to grow. They prune them. They give them manure, which fertilizes them. So the trick is, if you have enough plants to survive the chickens and not too many chickens to completely kill the plants. There has to be a balance. So that's another point. Nature works in balance. You can't have too much of one thing. So, you have to work in balance. So, he gave us a slight taste of biodynamic, and I say a very slight taste because biodynamics takes years to learn. Many, many books have been written on it, and it's a process that even though people have learned it, they continue to learn it as they live the principles that they've been taught. So he was a very interesting speaker, and it makes me want to learn more about biodynamic gardening. So I will probably buy some of the books that he had recommended. Another speaker that spoke is Asaf Bashan. Now, Asaf is a very interesting character. I've heard of him before, so I was very happy to hear him speak. He tries to preserve heirloom trees. He's all for preserving plants, heirloom seeds, etc. But he says what gets overlooked a lot are the heirloom trees. people are always looking for new varieties of trees, and they forget the older trees. They forget the trees that have taken thousands of years to adapt to a region. And even the fruit trees, everybody wants, oh, big, juicy, better fruit, but it's not necessarily better fruit. And you can have older varieties that maybe the fruit's not as big, maybe it's not as juicy, but it's more nutritious. And the trees don't require extra watering, and that you don't have to worry about them in the frost. And each climate, each area, each region has got its own brand of trees, its own types of trees. So for him, it's very, 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 very important to preserve as many natural trees, and not just fruit trees, even the non-fruiting trees. It's really important to preserve them, because each one of them has a role to play in the ecosystem. And it's not just that, they've adapted to the climate, they've adapted to the region. And the climate shifts. Sometimes it's colder, sometimes it's warmer, sometimes we have drought, sometimes we have rainy seasons. And those trees have made it through for thousands of years. They have adapted to all of those conditions in that region. So it's really important to have them there. It's really, really important. It's something that gets overlooked. And I was very happy to hear him talk. He was telling us about the fig trees, and he showed us, his background for his talk was just 50 types of figs, just different types. And he's been working on propagating many, many, many different types of fig trees. Each one has a very, very unique flavor. Each one has unique properties. And he used figs as an example, but there are so many more trees. Think of apples, think of pears, think of plums, so many different types. And then you have the wild versions as well, which are just as nutritious, if not more nutritious, but more adaptable to the land, that you don't have to worry about extreme weather conditions. So that was very, very interesting. Another thing that he had mentioned was that some people, when they say, oh, heirloom trees, you gotta, heirloom anything. You have to keep what was natural to the region over the thousands of years. And he was saying that, well, actually, trees that are imported are just as important, because sometimes an imported tree is better suited to a climate than some of the local trees of that variety. Some of the local trees might be struggling, whereas an imported version might actually be more beneficial to the environment, and it will adapt very well to this climate. And if there's an intermixing of pollination, like if they interpollinate, then it could invigorate the older trees from the region. So any tree that has been imported, into the country and it's well adapted, those trees are also very important to keep. So sometimes you see a tree that has been recently imported, and you think, that it might be invasive or whatever, but that tree does really, really well here, and it's not invasive, and it grows well here. And then when you do research on the tree, you discover that, oh, it originated in this region. It was only exported to Europe at a certain point, and then it was brought back recently. So it's, today things are so intermingled that, hundreds of years ago, seeds were exported, seeds were imported. As long as something will grow in a region, it belongs there. If it's adapted, it belongs there. And, this is something that he was saying, is that, okay, so maybe now it's not considered an heirloom, but a few years from now, it could be considered an heirloom, because it is so well established. So it's really important to preserve those trees. My take on it is, what he was really saying is that every tree has value. Every tree is important. If it's adapted to this region, then it needs to be preserved. It's very simple. So those are the two speakers that I'm going to focus on in this video. They were both very, very interesting. Again, this conference gave a lot of food for thought, a lot of good ideas. And so I have one more video that I'm going to make on this topic. And until next time.